August Maumelle Civil Service Commission meeting. Chief?
Lieutenant Ivy said that it wouldn't be possible at all to get somebody in the academy before the next one in January. So I have asked for something I apparently don't need now.
Yeah, sounds like we just go with our regular.
Yes, sir, that's not
October.
gonna hurt anything at all. That's,
But you might can get one, possibly two out of the three in the academy in September.
well, there's a possibility we'll get three.
Well,
That's not
that's a
gonna
slim
happen. That's
possibility,
right.
Hopefully.
but maybe at least one,
Right, yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir. I think one would be nice, and two would be a real plus.
Yeah.
So you are pulling back your,
I'm rescinding my request to early test, and just we'll go with the October test.
Okay.
Whatever I need to do to, I'm sorry, I wasted y'all's time, but like I said, it didn't occur to me, the October regular testing date when we, just tested.
that's why we have so many people in here asking questions.
And the answer's October
I'm
the
sorry.
8th.
No problem. All right, our next order of business is a discussion on the proposed language changes for overlapping on entry-level testing. Just discussion tonight. We're certainly not planning on any vote. I want to give everybody a month to think about this, in particular the chiefs, how it might affect them. But I will turn it over to HR.
In front of you, and I didn't know if I needed to pass this out to audience members or not,
Please.
since it's just a discussion at this point with language.
I'd like
So
to
does
be
it
able
need to
to
go
look
out?
at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get clarification on that first. So. There you go.
Are the two paragraphs, they appear to be exactly the same? Is there any differences?
They are exactly the
So you read
same.
the one, you read them both?
Yes, I think the only, well, I say exactly the same. It literally changes from eligibility list to promotion list.
Okay.
So that should be the only difference between the two. So where you would see eligibility lists in its own section, you'll see the word promotional list in its own section.
Okay.
So basically, just kind of worked over some different options. Came up with this with also communicating with council and some ideas behind it, and came up with this as a proposed language insert into the policies from the Civil Service Commission. And basically, it just lines out what we had discussed previously about how our lists take priority. It works off of that same concept of first in, first out. So it basically effectively just says, you know, the first test that was tested will take priority, and then once it's exhausted, the second and or third and subsequent test will take priority after exhaustion in order, until they are, of course, out of cycle for the 12 months that they are valid. It also goes on to kind of state what the chiefs had brought up on the last discussion, to say how they get their three names when they request them for open opportunities and for promotionals. So the three names can come either all from a technically exhausted list if it's deemed so by the commission, or if there's less than three, then it can be however many remain on the technically exhausted list, and then the top of the next priority list will continue until you get a full set of three names to provide to the chiefs if they request any. And so it just kind of lines those out, and then of course the footnotes just go in corresponding order to state when the rule was changed and approved by the commission. That's why it says X is out there beside it, but that is, you know, how it would be modified and inserted in with the appropriate footnotes. Other than that, that's pretty much the gist of the whole thing. You're welcome to read through it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take any comments, any.
That's what I'd like to
discussion
do
or
if we do.
anything.
If anybody has any questions, I'd like to get that discussion going. Again, we're certainly not voting on anything tonight, and I want to give everybody plenty of time to think it through, but having some questions answered if you have some uncertainties is certainly a good place to start there. I don't know why something that should be so simple continues to feel so slippery to me. It just does. I don't know why.
Blame the attorneys.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah, more than likely.
If there's any discussion that needs to be had tonight, I'll be more than happy to entertain it. Otherwise, we're gonna have to advertise, because that's a rule change.
We have to decide first what the rule change is gonna be, then you advertise.
No, I think, well, I'll defer to the city attorney.
No, we just need to be able to say that there's a proposed rule change being advocated.
Right, as long as we advertise just that fact, we're okay.
Yeah, and
Right.
so I'd recommend some sort of consensus, and I think by virtue of the fact that we're even having this, that we have enough of a consensus that if we then hold that public hearing, that we're not gonna say, well, we need to have so many changes that we're gonna reschedule this again. For the multitude of people who will appear for the rules change meeting.
Yes, right.
So what kind of a motion would we need if we wanted to vote on this at our next meeting, or should we vote on it prior to, or should we vote with, do we need to vote on it tonight?
No, absolutely not. I have no intention of voting on it tonight. I want everybody to have plenty of time to look this through and think about it.
I'd make a motion that we do go ahead and advertise that there is going to be a change, but we don't vote on it until our next meeting.
Correct.
Do you need a motion?
Sounds like we did.
That was
we
one.
might-
Sounds like we
that-
have
That
one.
was a
That was
motion,
one.
yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say yes. Yes. Any opposed? No. Motion carries, so we need to advertise that fact.
Okay.
And again, we will give the chiefs a month to think about this and find everything that can go wrong with it, and we'll have an open forum again at our next meeting, and we will take a vote on it then. Okay. Any additional comments?
The list of qualified applicants, I know Chief Williams has a problem keeping applicants there. If he had enough people to qualify, that list will last 1 year, right?
Correct.
And it would have priority over anything else.
Well, I could speak of this as the perfect meeting to discuss this, if I may.
Yep.
So if we would have tested in September, and let's say we got a list of 30 people that passed, I don't know, so everyone woke up and decided to apply. We had a good list of 30 people, then we'd retest in October our annual testing, and let's say we had another list of 25 people. All this rule does is say that we're going to go through the first list before we get to the second list. Now, the first list would expire in September of next year, and the second one October. So this just works out what we're going to do when there's two good lists, which is not a problem we're currently facing, is an abundance of good lists right now.
Yeah, just the opposite.
But to keep in, if we were to test here in October, and let's say the chief finds two people and he just wants to hold off on that third person, that would say that that third person rolls over to the top of the next list unless the Civil Service Commission deems that list exhausted.
And we do have that flexibility, so there's some leeway there for unusual circumstances.
Chief Payne?
Question up,
Yes, sir, please.
Well, I'm thinking from what I'm hearing, it's like Sam's got 3 good people right now that are eligible, okay? And say you get one of those, he gets a choice to pick from 3. So in the next list, those 2 could carry up if we did that before the next year. So those 2 would still be eligible and be the priority list to eliminate those before you went into this October list that you had, correct?
Well, so if there's 3, he hires one, we're down to 2. he would have the option of then pulling number one from a second list. Yeah. Yeah. Or if he came to the commission and said, these two folks, I don't want to have to keep them in my list. We have an incomplete list. I'm asking that the Civil Service Commission deem that prior list exhausted. They could do that, and then you'd start fresh with the next list.
Which again, I like that because it gives you some flexibility to deal with all the things we're not gonna think of until they happen.
In other words, he can bypass.
He can't bypass anything. He'd be acting in complete conformity with the rules.
No, I mean, he can bypass the people that, on the applicants. If you said if two of them were left, he could go to the next list and get the top.
He could come to the Civil Service Commission, who could deem the old list exhausted.
Let's do that first.
We would have to
Yes.
vote to exhaust
Yes.
that list before he could just leapfrog to the next one.
Correct.
And he would lose those two remaining,
Yes.
and then he could go to the next list.
Can I-
Come on, chief.
I'm like you, this-
I know.
But if we didn't exhaust the list, my list, if say I hired one, my next applicant pool would be 2 Septembers, 1 October.
Yes.
And I think that's what, Mr. Coney was asking, Mr. Coney, is then I could realistically take
Correct.
number 1 October and not last or next to last September.
But you're gonna lose those two when you do, because we're gonna have to declare that
You have
list
to-
exhausted.
Right.
Well, no, so
Okay, here we go.
if there are two lists, and he's got a list of 3 right now, if they hire one, we're dealing with a hypothetical list of 2. Just by nature, if we had a second list that was good, he would just ask Jared for the list of 3. It would include 2 from the old list and 1 from the new list. He could choose the 1 from the new list, and let's say now he needs to hire that third person. That choice would be the 2 from the old list and a second person from the new list. Unless what the chiefs are asking for is saying that those 2 that remain on the list are just not of the caliber that they're wanting, and they just like to completely eliminate having to consider
Then we
them.
would have the
Then they can
flexibility
come-
of
yes.
exhausting the list
Yes.
at their
Come to us.
request.
Correct. But just because they choose that person from the new list doesn't automatically render the old list invalid.
Right.
So the old list is in place for 1 year unless people are hired, disqualified for background, or this commission deems the list exhausted.
If you qualify 3 applicants, are they all the same they all have, all of them have the same qualifications?
No, sir.
So
all
they're
of them
different-
met
they're
minimums.
different qualified.
They've all 3 met minimum qualifications.
Okay. Well, I know the Little Rock Fire Department the chief can pick any one of the top 3 qualified.
Rule of 3, yes, sir.
He can go over the top one and pick the second one.
Same here.
Yes, sir.
Or he can go,
That's right, that's correct.
Go to number.
so you have the same option.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Any additional discussion?
Uh,
I think we talked more about it after we left it than we did while we were on it.
I think we'll get more, when they take it back to the uniform, we're gonna get more questions, more scenarios, I bet.
Very possible.
Maybe.
Come on.
If there is a issue, I don't imagine anybody currently on the police department will care about the hiring list. If there's an issue, it will be the promotion list.
Yeah.
Because I am not familiar of a time in either one of my departments where we ran out of people on a promotion list before there was a new promotion list.
Right.
Or we went down to 2. If there is an issue, I bet that might be where it is. And I will, I'll send this out and get feedback. That's the way to address that. I'm trying to think if I was next to last on the list, and then y'all told me that you were gonna test early for sergeant or whatever. Would I be sitting there and go, wait, you still got you a qualified applicant here? Because obviously we don't do backgrounds on
Right.
officers. You know, the civil service list has said, this is a qualified patrol officer, otherwise he wouldn't be on the sergeant's list. If we have any feedback, I bet that's.
But you're right, normally we have way more eligible for promotion than we have promotions potential, so. So one of those things, you know, it could happen. You can't say it
Well,
would
at
never.
that point, the department heads, the police chief, is gonna have to just decide whether he goes down the list unless there's a compelling reason not to.
Any additional discussion?
Motion to adjourn.
I didn't even ask for it, I got it anyway. Got a motion to adjourn, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn and a second? Any discussion? I know
Before it
it's
gets
not.
any deeper, my mind's
All in
already
favor
spinning.
say yes, yes, all opposed, no. Motion carries.
And you wanna be mayor.